in a speech that lasted 86 minutes at the last count, among the shorter speeches, she has once done a 2 hours and 40-minute speech as well. The big announcements in the budget, some structural reforms, some infrastructure spending, a lot of emphasis that is being given to sectors where India can make a difference. But let's take a quick reaction around the table for what their biggest takeaways in this election were all about. The markets, as you can see, right now still trying to decipher. It is 1,000 points down, not really a big thumbs up yet. We're still waiting to watch how the markets react, but right now in the red. Monica Hallan, for you, biggest takeaway this budget, do you think it sets the pace for the kind of structural change in the growth momentum?
I think it's a work in progress budget. It is more, it's just like continuation of what has been happening in the past. I think the big story has played out already. This is just the nitty-gritty. They're trying to ease up all the wrinkles in the system. If you notice, a lot of the budget speech has been about taking this compliance away, taking away this decriminalizing offenses. So I think it's really in that place. The reason markets are down is because they have increased the STT on futures and options.
From 0.002 to 0.005. Is that a lot?
No, in the sense this is bad for speculators and traders more than pure investors. It's just that there was a promise made long back by then Finance Minister Chidambaram that we will make your long-term capital gains zero if there is a STT. But then STT has remained and capital gains has come back. I am just glad that they have not tinkered with the rate right now. There was a pressure to increase the capital gains on equity. That they have not done. So, see, there's no big tinkering with the taxes as expected. So it's really a work in progress.
If you're a common lady at home looking to ease up the pressure on her wallet, as a household, do you think there are any big announcements?
The inflation number is the lowest that I can remember. So I don't know where this complaint of
no, this is not a complaint. It's always an expectation.
No, but look, your inflation rate is the lowest that I can remember. So if you take gold out of the CPI, you're actually in negative territory. The real return that you're getting on fixed deposit is the highest that I can ever remember. So there is an inflation expectation built in our heads, which is not really what we are seeing in the CPI data.
Okay, all right. So Anand Ranganathan, if you were in my shoes, what would your headline be today?
Remove the shoes and hit the finance.
Terribly large shoes to fill.
Yeah, I have a large size.
No, look, I think today's budget, I would rate 8 out of 10. And I'll tell you why. It's about rearranging deck chairs at 2 locations. One is rearranging deck chairs so to look at the sunrise or the sunset or in front of the ocean, relax and watch India progress. And the other is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. As far as rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic is concerned, there is nothing about privatization, nothing about disinvestment. It is about restructuring public sector units. As I said, restructuring PSUs that take up about 20% of our annual allocation of budget is like rearranging deck chairs on Titanic. But as far as rearranging deck chairs to look at India progress, sunrise, I think there are a few very great decisions, I would say. Pharma sector gets a big fillip. You have the tax.
The bio-organic pharma sector.
Yes, I think that's
the natural
great for drugs. And I think it's opening up this sector, which is very important. Drugs, pharmaceuticals. There are, I think, import relaxations on cancer drugs. So that sector has been addressed. A lot of other sectors have been addressed. For example, data centers, you have a tax break till 2047. That's a good thing. That will be a fillip. But at the end of the day, please remember that you have already very few jigsaws to play with. I mean, 25%.
Well, I don't know which jigsaw the markets are looking at.
Yeah.
At the moment, almost 200 points points or thereabouts down. 1,594 points down.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign, Anand. Or would you worry about it? Or
No, I would not particularly worry about it. What were they expecting that would have raised it?
Jaggi?
Yeah, I think the markets have been going down for a while, except for the domestic institutions which are anyway buying a lot of shares that others were selling. So it was bound to go down. I think the market was expecting some kind of accommodation on LTCG or some other tax gains, which have not come. So it's more a mismatch of expectations rather than anything real. Don't worry, tomorrow they'll recalibrate, start looking at the fine print and do the right things.
Market to better hota.
Yeah. So my broad take was this budget is about continuing with the direction, not about speed. It is not about a reform express, but the idea is to oil the wheels of all the little carriages going all around. Its philosophy is that if you make multiple small improvements in multiple places, ultimately the net result will add up to something exponential, is the hope. Okay, so it's about fixing the plumbing, removing the corroded pipes and ones that is choking growth. Ultimately, the assumption is that finally it will all come together and make the growth faster.
So it's a spring cleaning budget rather than a big bang budget. You're taking care of the nuts and bolts and plugging the leakages, cleaning the drains, that kind, and nobody ever gets any marks for housekeeping, really, Gursharan Das. So do you think required to do that, and that's what is being done?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use the word house cleaning because it doesn't have quite the connotation of moving
housekeeping, I said.
Housekeeping. It doesn't have the connotation of actually moving up, because I think that, and as I said in the beginning, I will evaluate this budget purely on the basis of how it makes our country competitive, export competitive. That to me is the critical thing for getting jobs, for bringing jobs in the country and creating an industrial revolution. So the steps, there were steps, maybe small steps like municipal bonds, will make urban bodies more independent and more empowered. There's a lot more to be done in that area to have empowered mayors, etc. But this is a good step. Then the push for AI. I think AI represents a huge opportunity. There are negatives, of course, but AI represents a very big opportunity in education and health. Every child can have a personal tutor. Every mother can have a personal doctor, and so on. The idea of girls' hostels in every district. Now, I would do it in a PPP way, the way Apple, iPhone did it. It was a brilliant thing they did. This 18,000 girls' hostel for the iPhone. I think that should be done along with industry, and industry should also pay something for that hostel. So these are good ideas. China has implemented them brilliantly. Duty-free imports for products for export. The MAT to be the final rate, again, brings clarity, brings predictability. The exemption of little thing, but very important, exemption of duty on capital goods for critical mineral mining, important. Then I think that on in the whole area of customs, there's a fair amount of cleanup.
Yes.
Cleanup of simplifying the procedures, digitizing end-to-end the import. I think it will help make us more competitive. I wish she had sorted out the inverted pyramid in customs duty in terms of products.
We'll take a look, because she's expected to address a press conference at 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. But let's get the sense from India Inc. on whether their expectations have been met. Sanjay Budhia, Chairman CII National Committee on Exports, joining us this afternoon. Also joining us is R. Mukundan, President Designate CII and Managing Director and CEO of Tata Chemicals. Mr. Mukundan, first to you, what do you think about the budget? A lot of painstaking effort being put to clean up the system, to make it stronger. for the next big phase of growth that this country needs to get into. But many are looking at it in terms of no big bang announcement and the markets down. How do you look at the budget announcements?
Thank you. In fact, I've been saying for quite some time that this should be a build-forward budget, not a big bang budget. So I think you should look at it as a build-forward budget. There's a strong foundation already laid down. I think she spoke about broadly two themes. One is continuing the momentum on growth. At the same time, she used a very important word called integrate. Integrate with the external economy to export as well as attract investment. And I think that's been the key focus. So when we talk about integration with the external economy, a lot of focus and emphasis we had wanted on the customs in the indirect area. I think that has been done. And a lot of irritants which were there in the current taxation structure had to be addressed. Many minor items like TDS, TCS, those have been addressed. Now, in terms of the key focus areas, what we had highlighted was issues around manufacturing, MSME, and also related to what we called as infrastructure and urbanization. India is going to urbanize at a rapid rate. And to that extent, I think she actually chose 7 broad themes to work on, which is to scale manufacturing, rejuvenate industrial, legacy industries, MSME, infrastructure, security and stability, and city economic region. So to a large extent, there will be many schemes announced in this, and I think we need to ensure that we implement them fast, implement them quickly, and I think that would go a long way. Fundamentally, I think the way we should think about this budget is a build-forward budget, not a big bang budget.
Would you want to rate the budget? Normally, we do try and get numbers. Anand Ranganathan already saying 8 on 10. What's your scorecard?
No, I wouldn't rate any budget because each budget comes with a context they are living in. I mean, if you start rating budget which was done when we wanted a big taxation change versus a budget which has been done when we want to integrate along with the global world, I think we would get the whole dynamics wrong. And also this whole point about what is the stock market doing immediately the minute after a budget is announced, I think is probably not the right way. We should see the impact of the budget in terms of investment. So the objective of this budget is to integrate with the external economy, to continue the growth momentum despite the external challenge. And if we are able to deliver that in the next 12 months in the short term, and also ensure in the long term we are able to address the issue of integrating with external economy, I think we would have done the job. And I think that's exactly the focus here when you talk about focus on infrastructure, focus on logistics, focus on building industrial parks, rejuvenating legacy industrial parks, and also focusing on some critical sectors which have huge potential like semiconductors, electronics. I think she's highlighted a whole slew of effort. At the same time, I think there's a third priority they had, which is to say that we need to make this a citizen budget, which is why the focus on fishermen, the farmer, I think it should be seen in the context of the various elements the government is trying to balance. On one hand, the urbanizing, industrializing India. At the same time, the large, vast majority of India which still depends on agriculture for its income, large, vast majority of India which is dependent on various other resources, including the tribals, the whole issue of fishermen. I think she's tried to address all that in a very positive way. There's a strong boost to tourism. And I think that is very critical. The internal domestic tourism is a long ignored area. I think that is now actually one of the most booming sectors and also generating employment. So there's a whole series of focus in terms of what we call as the religious tourism as well as nature trails, which are all going to boost the areas where we actually not have explored. So to a large extent, I would say in the context of where we are doing this budget is aiming to do exactly what it intended to do.
Well said, Mr. Budhia. To you, I want to ask, Mr. Gurcharan Das, right from the start of this debate on the budget, has been insisting that he would only test this budget on the foundations of whether or not it makes India more competitive to export as well as have domestic investments to increase employment. On that cornerstone, How would you rate this budget?
I think this budget is really a big booster for India's exports and to make exports competitive. As all of us know, India is the flavor, and world is looking at India to be the manufacturing hub. And under the present situation, Mr. Mukundan, our president, has tabulated most of the measures. I would like to say that the reliance on SCZ, sizable investment has been made in India's special economic zones, which are not fully utilized. So the utilization of that capacity to supply to DTA areas up to a certain percentage will be a big boost, and that would be very effectively utilized. Similarly, exempting inverted duty structures on certain products which will be announced, and also making self-reliant. The budget emphasizes on the trust, on the continuity, and fast-tracking our progress, which should be implemented and supplemented by putting the trust in India Inc. and in the Indians in general. I would like to also touch that I am the father of a child with special needs, and this budget specifically talks about Dimension and mental health and
Yes, it's a sensitive budget. Absolutely a sensitive budget on that score. Well, some of the takeaways, the big. Okay, all right, hands going up.
Couple of things. This is a budget great on ideas. To that extent, I agree with Dr. Ranganathan, 8 on 10. But very vague on specifics. So vague on specifics. So, for example, the rare earth mineral. Now, we all know, and Dr. Das spoke about, the future is AI technology, and we need rare earth for that and for our future technology. Now, they've announced this corridor for these 4 states. They've said that, look, the material that comes in will be tax-free or exempted from duties. But if you don't get environment clearances, in Jammu, we have lithium deposits. It's over 6 years. It's the same government. It's a double-engine government. You haven't got clearance to start mining. If you don't have a single window system, you aren't going to go forward. 90% plus is controlled by China. So you can't have these great announcements, have claps in parliament, and not have a specific idea. That doesn't make you ready for the future.
Well, are there claps in parliament? Let's look at the first reactions coming in from parliament. Tehseen, at least you warmed my heart by expecting claps in parliament. But let's listen in. Congress Member of Parliament Imran Masood and his takeaway from this budget.
इमरान मसूद है हमारे साथ बात करने के लिए। इमरान भाई, बजट कैसा लगा?
खाली, कुछ भी नहीं है, खाली डब्बा है। आप उम्मीद कर रहे थे कि टैरिफ की मार झेल रहे हैं एक्सपोर्टर, कुछ राहत मिलेगी। जो अमेरिका को एक्सपोर्ट हो रहा था उनको कुछ राहत देने का काम करेंगे, लेकिन खाली डब्बा हाथ में जिक्र भी नहीं किया। ना मुरादाबाद के लिए, ना सहारनपुर के लिए, ना भदोही के लिए कोई जिक्र नहीं है उन सेक्टर्स के लिए जिन सेक्टर्स के अंदर एक्सपोर्ट अमेरिका हो रहा था। कोई जिक्र नहीं है। नौजवान खाली हाथ, किसान के बारे में कोई चर्चा नहीं, किसान की फसल के बारे में कोई चर्चा नहीं। तो दिया क्या आपने? खाली डब्बा।
केरल पर चर्चा हुई, केरल के लिए उन्होंने घोषणा की, पश्चिम बंगाल के लिए कहा।
घोषणा की ना पश्चिम बंगाल के लिए ना केरल के लिए, क्या घोषणा की? क्या घोषणा की बताइए ना। कोई कुछ है ही नहीं बजट के अंदर। बजट खाली डब्बा है। पहले हम सोच रहे थे कि खाली डब्बे में पुराना माल होगा, इसमें से तो पुराना माल भी निकाल लिया, अब तो डब्बा ही डब्बा दे दिया।
ठीक है। कांग्रेस सांसद।
Well, if you expected any other reaction, first I have to take your reaction, Anand Ranganath. खाली डब्बा, पुराना माल भी नहीं है, वो भी निकाल लिया।
नहीं, इमरान जी ठीक कह रहे हैं, कुछ बोटियां तो देनी चाहिए थी, बोटी भी निकाल ली उन्होंने। No, but
I can give you one number. The budget documents have just dropped. So the defense spend, not as percentage of GDP, but percent of the budget. Okay, how much of the budget is being spent on defense has been a consistent 8% for the last 6 years. This year it's up to 11%. Okay, so that's a big one that you have really ramped up.
So defense budget goes up to 11% of the budget, not the 8%. So that's a substantial rise. Shashi Tharoor responding.
वो तो होना चाहिए, वैसे भी फिशरीज में हमें कुछ बेनिफिट होना चाहिए, लेकिन जब शिप रिपेयर के बारे में बोला और वाराणसी और पटना के बारे में बोला, केरला के बारे में कुछ नहीं सुन सका, तो ये सब हमें जरा सा आश्चर्यजनक है। लेकिन ये भी कहूँ कि शायद डिटेल्स बजट डॉक्यूमेंट में होंगे, हम पढ़ा नहीं, अब तक सिर्फ भाषण सुने हैं। भाषण में तो बहुत कम डिटेल्स है जो हमें जरूरी थी।
चलिए शशि थरूर साहब हमारे साथ हैं। थरूर साहब
नंबर देंगे, बजट पूरा बजट सुना
यही हाल रहा तो लोहे पर पीतल चढ़ा करके जेवर बनाने पड़ेंगे। और ये बजट गरीब के समझ के बाहर है। जो बुनियादी चीजें हैं, शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, आप सोचिए उत्तर प्रदेश का हाल आपने सुना होगा, देखा होगा। पोस्टमार्टम होना है किसका, और पोस्टमार्टम के लिए ले किसको जा रहे हैं। ओटी में जाना किसको था, ले किसको जा रहे हैं। ये तो स्वास्थ्य व्यवस्था का हाल है। और शिक्षा का हालत ये है कि बिना शिक्षा के हम विकसित भारत कैसे बनाएंगे। विकसित भारत का सपना अगर देखना है तो शिक्षा क्षेत्र में हमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा बजट देना पड़ेगा। ये समझ से बाहर बजट है, ये सपने दिखाने वाला बजट है। जिन लोगों ने अपने पुराने घोषणा पत्र पे कोई काम ना किया, उनसे उम्मीद क्या करोगे। बीजेपी से उम्मीद ही नहीं तो बजट से उम्मीद क्या करेंगे।
कितने नंबर देंगे बजट को, आपने पूरा बजट सुना है।
Well, रोहित आजाद, सोने पे पीतल चढ़ाने वाला बजट है. How do you respond to Akhilesh Yadav and what are your takeaways?
I think rhetorics aside, this budget is quite run of the mill. I think the government has seen that 2026 is going to be 2025. It's not so easy. There is a lot of political uncertainty. The year started with an ominous sign. Trump picked up a president, took him away. So we don't know what it holds out for the world. Global economy is perhaps not necessarily going to give you the demand that you need. So it was a bit disappointing that on the fiscal side of it, which actually provides domestic demand, the government has not really
but they've just
opened
done a boost by GST cut.
One factual thing I would like to, because middle class, last year's budget was all about the middle class tax rebate. And the idea was that it is going to, because there's a decline in tax buoyancy is going to go up. Now look at the numbers. The budget estimate, the actual collection that has been done on taxes of income has gone down drastically. Just the nominal numbers, forget about as a proportion of GDP. So it was announced 1.4, if I'm not mistaken, 43 lakh crores. It has come to 1.31. Not corporate tax, I'm talking about taxes on income. So tax buoyancy that you expect, which is what you expected, what you announce versus what you get is not so clear. In this case, this is what has happened. So there may be many announcements you can promise the moon.
All right.
I want to continue to criticize the government. Just one line, sir. I think this is one of the most shameless things that this government is, and I'm going to be very harsh, is they're destroying the bull run of the stock markets. Now, it is, when you said early in the morning, it is people like us with our SIPs that are keeping the market away. They didn't remove long-term capital gains. They didn't remove short-term capital gains. They have now increased the STT. The problem with this government is at a time when FPI is exiting the markets and we are holding the markets, they are completely treating us as your voice will be crushed. This is a government of Babus determined to destroy the stock market. I have never seen a country, a government so determined to destroy a wealth-creating market that is actually giving positive returns.
Well, I don't think it's so black, Gursharan Das, is it?
Yeah, no, I don't, I mean, I wouldn't use the words that he has used, but I would say, no, but I would say that, that the comment made on just now, yeah, that let's take the farmer, the voice of the farmer. Now, they are not able to introduce the farm laws right away. I can understand that, which would have really given freedom to the farmer. But what they could have done is low-hanging fruit. And just to give you one example, that 1/3 of the fresh vegetables and fruit rot on the farm. We all know that. And Ashok Gulati has been crying hoarse about it for years. Now, this is a low...
May I correct you? Decades.
Sorry?
He's been crying for decades to build cold storages.
Not build, but every country has solved this problem because they allowed major retailers or e-commerce. In recent years, it was e-commerce. Now, we have a very simple We have e-commerce players in India who are very successful, and all you allow, if you allowed them to carry inventory from the farm to the store, to the consumer, you've done it. And the farmer would have gained 1,50,000 crores. You're talking about increasing farmer income. This would be a big deal. And it's a very simple thing where
Not done.
Now, a couple of things. No, I completely agree. And incidentally, the second farm law, the reform, was to do away with the emergency provisions of the Essential Commodities Act.
Exactly.
You know, overnight the so-called babus would convert storage to holding. So nobody wanted to build these godowns, and as a result 70 million tons of Indian agricultural produce goes waste every year, 30% of all fruits and vegetables. But I want to ask, if you want reforms, where is the tax on agricultural income? The government would have earned 3 lakh crores every year, but it's just afraid to do it. The greatest steps are the ones that should be taken first. But the problem is, in this country,
Anand Ranganathan, I think you're expecting, in this country, decisions to be taken almost as if one nation, one election.
On merit, not reservation.
One nation, one election is a reality. Agriculture income, farm laws, we've seen what happened. The intent was there, but the political backlash was so bad that to again begin to expect it to come back, either you are naive or you're expecting कि सचमुच कलयुग में कृष्ण जी प्रकट होंगे और अपना चक्र चलाएंगे. It doesn't work that way in the real world. However, look at the number of announcements that have been made. Look at the pharma one that you spoke about. Look at AI. Look at also what they've said in terms of data centers and the cloud working. These are all potential businesses that will be big businesses in the times to come.
Marks diye the. मैंने 4 नहीं दिए ना.
I gave 8. You had given
because
8
I know the government is not going to.
You had given 8 on 10, but then you suddenly, out of that 2 that you took away, if you keep agriculture tax as the reason why you've taken those 2, I'm questioning that. Also look at this whole chip semiconductor manufacturing that they have done. Well, Rahul Gandhi is reacting. Let's go across. Oh well, he chose not to speak. More than him, Tehseen, you've spoken on the budget. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad. Maybe he's going to go back home and look at the fine print before he makes a comment. Vivek Srivastav, a lot of ground has been covered on semiconductors, on infrastructure spending, on improving urban infrastructure through the local bodies, looking at pushing through railways in and the network of railways. Defense budget up by 20%. Do you think Ms. Sitharaman deserves a pat on the back from the opposition?
No, I mean, I do not know why Dr. Ranganathan is so much anti-farmer, anti-people. This panel ko main sun raha hu, everybody is speaking. There is such a lot of disconnect between what the elitist economists sitting over here talk and what a common man who's very poor feels. There is no talk of employment. Koi baat nahi hai, koi scheme nahi hai. And when I'm talking to experts, they are saying, भाई जब tourism बढ़ेगा तो employment बढ़ेगी, जब कुछ और बढ़ेगा तो employment बढ़ेगी. There are no schemes as such. The farm laws, it's good. They are not in picture and they will never be in picture. MSP की बात करनी चाहिए. कैंसर के ऊपर जो ड्रग्स हैं उसके ऊपर जो उन्होंने ड्यूटी एग्जेम्पशन करा, हम उसको वेलकम करते हैं. उसके बाद पोल्यूशन के ऊपर, which is a national problem, and again I'll go back to China. In 2008, I still remember when games were played in China, people were wearing masks in Beijing. But by the time it was 2016, Beijing was spotlessly clean with one of the cleanest airs in the world. हम भी कर सकते हैं, हमने किया नहीं है और हमारी कोई पॉलिसी नहीं है नेशनल. And all that the finance minister is going to say finally.
हमने इसलिए नहीं किया है विवेक श्रीवास्तव जी क्योंकि आपने मास्क नहीं पहना हुआ अभी just yet. आपने पहना होता तो जरूर आ जाता इस पे announcement. Anyway,
there is a reason why the communists have hammer and sickle on their flag for more than a century. They want you to keep using those tools. अब ये पोल्यूशन की बात कर रहे हैं. मैं इनको बताऊं कि MSP से डायरेक्ट कोरिलेशन है पोल्यूशन का, बिकॉज द फार्मर स्टार्टेड ग्रोइंग ओनली द क्रॉप्स दैट वर गारंटीड बाय MSP. As a result, the water table went down. As a result, the sowing season was delayed. As a result, the harvesting season coincided with winters. As a result, every year 17,900 square kilometers is on fire. So when you talk about pollution, you don't talk about the Parali burning. You don't talk about the 35 million tons of rice stubble that is burnt.
You're a scientist. You're a scientist. No, Anand, you're a scientist.
You want to keep using hammer and sickle, Vivek Srivastava. That is the reason.
Anand, you are a scientist. You should speak like a scientist. While Parali matters a great deal,
yes,
half of the pollution in Delhi comes from transport.
And says who?
It's only...
Says
data.
Which
your
data? Which
CPCB's data. Government data
now
says
suddenly
that.
you believe this.
Just
you are not going to discount the fact that you have 17,000 square kilometers on fire.
Only a winter
17,000.
Why do you have bad air throughout the year? You also smell it.
It is a
your life is also
your point
so
is
why would
keep
you
on burning Parali?
The way I look at it, pollution definitely a problem 24/7 into 12. But expecting the budget to address your pollution problems, I think we are missing the woods for the trees. Joining me this afternoon is Kamal Bali, chairman of the CII National Committee on MNCs, also president and managing director of the Volvo Group. B. Thiagarajan, chairman of the CII Trade Fairs Council and the CII National Committee on CSR. Mr. Bali, how do you look at this budget? The emphasis on infrastructure, a lot of it is about housekeeping, correcting things that needed attention, going into that detail. Not so much of a big bang announcement so far. How do you see this budget?
Yeah, Navika, I mean, personally, if I were to really comment on the highlights of this budget, or something very, very important which this budget has touched upon, is the manufacturing. And I think the good thing is that why manufacturing is so important, because manufacturing continues to be 15 or 14% of our GDP for many, many years. And if we really want to create those jobs and create that multiplier effect, manufacturing should be about 22 to 25% of our GDP. And this successive industry bodies and governments have been trying to do this, but the needle hasn't moved much. And I think here what I like is the focus on not only the sunrise sectors, but also on the legacy sectors. And therefore, this will give a phenomenal multiplier effect. It'll create the high quality jobs. I personally believe, but we have to be patient. Manufacturing is not going to happen overnight. It's about 3 to 5 year time frame. You can create some high quality jobs. You will export more than you import. So therefore you will improve your balance of payment situations, and also the pressure on the currency will drop, unlike what it is today. So to my mind, that's one very, very big positive on manufacturing. The second is on the cities as engines of growth. So I think that's the second one. And the third piece is the continuing focus on infra spend. Another 1.2 lakh crore has been increased over the last year's spends. So I think this is, to my mind, very, very important. Infrastructure also leads to future revenue streams, and also while the infrastructure is being created, it will lead to jobs. So in my view, it's a very, very positive budget for the long-term India Viksit Bharat story. And this is on top of the already good growth which the economy is seeing. Now we are looking at upwards of 7%. We used to talk of 6.5%, upwards of 7%. Your ratings, India's rating from the multilateral rating agencies has been increased. The India-EU FTA is going to be another game changer when it comes to, again, balance of payments and again exports from India. But for all of this to happen, the starting point is manufacturing. Unless you build, everything else, whether we talk of jobs, they will remain dreams. Unless until manufacturing happens on ground, you create jobs, you create economic activity, you start improving your quality, you start exporting. And I think, to me, this budget looks to be in that direction, and of course we have to look at the details, and of course many areas in terms of all connected with manufacturing, in terms of customs duties, in terms of ease of doing business. But the key thing will be how governance at the working level takes place, and that's one area where India needs to improve governance at district level, at the working level, and I think there should
nail
not
on
be
the head,
loss
Mr.
of
Bali. That
ideas
is the
of
level where we need to look at implementation and governance. Well, Home Minister Amit Shah just tweeting and commending the budget, also talking about the emphasis on manufacturing, infrastructure and healthcare and tourism. That has been the important parts, including sports, AI, and the religious tourism that this government has emphasized on. Joining the broadcast is Shehzad Poonawala, national spokesperson of the BJP. And Shehzad, to you I bring the first reactions. Imran Masood calls this the Khali Dabba budget, saying even the old announcements, Purana bhi maal nahi hai, wo bhi nikal liya. And Akhilesh Yadav, saying लोहे के ऊपर पीतल चढ़ाकर जेवर बनाने पड़ेंगे, ऐसा बजट है. Can you please respond to the first few political reactions?
नाविका जी, आपके सामने हाथ जोड़कर मैं पूछना चाहता हूं कि जिस इमरान मसूद ने दिल्ली में आतंकवाद करने वाले डॉक्टर्स को भटके हुए युवा बताया, क्या आपको लगता है कि देश को विकसित भारत बनाने वाले बजट में उनको कोई भी अच्छी चीज नजर आएगी? उनका दृष्टि दोष है भाई, तो उनके दृष्टि दोष पे हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते. ये नवाब ऑफ नेगेटिविटी, जैसे अरुण जेटली जी बोलते थे, प्रोपेगेंडा एंड पेडलर्स ऑफ पेसिमिज्म, और मैं कह सकता हूं चैंपियंस ऑफ सिनिसिज्म है. मैं आपको सुबह बता रहा था कि एक गीता वाला बजट है, मतलब कि ग्रोथ, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, टेक्नोलॉजी और आत्मनिर्भर भारत. ग्रोथ को सस्टेन करेगा, फिस्कल डेफिसिट को कंट्रोल में रखेगा. अब आपने देखा कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में 12.2 लाख करोड़ का निवेश होगा, मतलब पिछले साल से 1 लाख करोड़ ज्यादा हम लोग पुश कर रहे हैं. टेक्नोलॉजी में सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन हो या एआई हो, डेटा सेंटर्स बनाने की बात हो, आत्मनिर्भर भारत की दृष्टि से अगर आप देखेंगे तो 7 की स्ट्रेटेजिक सेक्टर्स है. रेयर अर्थ मेटल्स, रेयर मिनरल्स का एक सेक्टर हो चुका है, सेमीकंडक्टर का हो चुका है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बूस्ट करने के लिए, एमएसएमई को बूस्ट करने के लिए, टेक्सटाइल को बूस्ट करने के लिए हम लोगों ने इसमें प्रावधान दिया है. पर इसमें मैं आप जोड़ना चाहता हूं कि गीता के बाद ये ज्ञान बजट भी है. ज्ञान का मतलब है जी फॉर गरीब, मतलब कि हेल्थ, एजुकेशन की स्पेंडिंग को आगे बढ़ाना, गरीबों को देना. वाई फॉर युवा, युवाओं के लिए एक नया सेटअप तैयार करना जिसकी वजह से उनको और एम्प्लॉयमेंट मिल सके. ए से अन्नदाता, किसानों के लिए ज्यादा उसमें और प्रावधान है. और एन से नारी, जैसे आपके स्क्रीन पर भी दिख रहा है कि लखपति दीदी को और भी सशक्त करना और हमारी विमेन एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को बूस्ट करना. तो ये गीता और ज्ञान है. अब बताइए इमरान मसूद को गीता और ज्ञान कैसे पसंद आएगा?
पूनावाला, आपको मैं नवाब ऑफ एक्रोनिम्स बुलाने वाली हूं, बिकॉज जितने एक्रोनिम्स आपने दे दिए हैं, आपको नवाब ऑफ एक्रोनिम्स मैं बुलाऊंगी. संजय झा, गीता एंड ज्ञान बजट says Shehzad Poonawala. Can you please respond?
Well, I understand Shehzad's predicament from a normal TV debate. This is about numbers, rhetoric, and Bollywood dialogues don't fly here. Let's look at two aspects where I think the budget, amongst many, has actually failed to deliver. Hardly a surprise that the stock markets look like they're tanking already, if that's a message that Mr. Shah and Mr. Modi, who read very deeply into how the stock market behaves post-budget. What is there on jobs, Navika? I credit the BJP government for destroying India's youth, the demographic dividend story. And it's going to get worse with artificial intelligence and more capital-intensive manufacturing coming into play. As somebody who lives in Mumbai, and I'm, by the way, part of the corporate sector, so for the BJP, who very often pounces that I'm Vivek Srivastava's first cousin, a hardcore leftist who is defined by Karl Marx, I'm not. So here is my question to the BJP, my question number one, and have a second very quick one. The first one is, they talked of manufacturing, didn't they, Navika? We will make it 25% of the GDP and create 100 million jobs. Manufacturing has slumped. And even when they talked in the latest survey about it growing at 8.1%, Did you look at the underlying message? On the core 8 sectors, they grew by just 2.9%. So how can manufacturing be 8.1% when the core sector is performing at 2.9? And until you get manufacturing right, you can't create jobs. Jobs can't happen in services. Jobs can't happen in agriculture. They need to happen in manufacturing. This government has failed. My second point is, I think, the one where this government gets a zero. Inequality. Ever since the pandemic, you have had a K-shaped recovery. And I want to make this point. Today, the middle class, I hope the middle class who's watching this program, the poor who have just become part of the middle class, and they should know that today personal income tax is higher than corporate income tax. Can you imagine that? And a large part of ordinary Indians are paying GST in obscene numbers, which is a regressive tax, worsening the inequality, making it from bad to worse. Because what I pay for a soap, what I pay for in a restaurant is that exactly what Adani, Ambani and Mr. Mahindra pays, which is why inequality is getting more aggravated. And we are headed for a situation where the youth have no jobs. And one of the reasons why you'll find, Navika, this is a critical point, the BJP will claim we have low inflation. But can I tell you something? Low inflation is linked to high unemployment. Because when unemployment is high, there are no jobs. When there are no jobs, there is no income. When there is no income, there is no expenditure. When there is no expenditure and demand, inflation is bound to be on the lower side. India has failed, not because of any other reason. We have failed to back rural demand. We have failed to back the ordinary consumer of India who could have spent their money. And that's why there is no private investment in this country either.
Well, that was a monologue of the nature, and I've been so psyched by Sanjay Jha since morning that I was scared. Being a woman anchor, pata nahi kya bol denge. So isliye I have not interrupted.
No, this is my subject. You and I studied in the same place. You know, I'm very passionate about economics.
After your morning performance, I'm a little reluctant to display my alma mater is the same as yours. But reactions to Sanjay Jha, Anand?
I think one needs to give the complete picture. Now, to say that manufacturing has gone down is not giving the complete picture. If you look at, for example, the FDI inflow from $40 billion to $80 billion, this doubled. As a percentage of GDP, when you give, yes, it stayed the same or less. Manufacturing has been the highest ever, $440 billion. But as a percentage of GDP, so you give both figures. For example, can you say that, look, the manufacturing has gone down because I'm looking at the percent of GDP? Well, then you will say the services has gone up because, for example, give the entire picture. Let the viewers know that in the IIP has been the highest in the last 2 years. Just the data came out last.
True, Anand. But our objective is also to be going back to a level where we are the very high manufacturing country, and we want to revive our manufacturing sector. 1 minute. Can we please stop the crosstalk in the panel, because we have guests from outside. Siddharth Sharma ji of the Aam Aadmi Party also joining the broadcast. And आपके क्या विचार हैं बजट पे? I hope you are happy with the budget. It pays attention to infrastructure, to farmers, to youth, to sports. I'm sure you would want to compliment Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman.
Things like this has become a ऊंट के मुंह में जीरा बजट है, जिसे ऑलरेडी मार्केट में गिरकर अपना हिसाब किताब बता दिया है कि किस तरह का बजट है. Since India's budget got leaked, even before the Finance Minister could present her policy, Trump announced where India is going to buy oil from next time. Guess the market believes Trump more than BJP. That's what has happened. So in the Indian context, all numbers have to be compared against a big denominator, and 140 crore being that elephant in the room, whose diet is measured not in grams but in tons. So what 240 crore Indians expect from a budget? Simple thing. Every citizen has 3 core concerns. One is his own safety, second is his family's health, third is his kids' future. And to ensure these 3, every citizen, rich or poor, pays tax to the governments. Now, even in a mundane act like buying daily vegetables, we see if our return on investment is good or bad, if the potatoes I am buying is worth the money I am paying or not. So how much does Government of India take tax from each family every year? Last year, that is the budget that is presented just now. It shows that nearly 1 lakh rupee tax per family per household the Indian government has taken. एग्जैक्ट फिगर इज अराउंड
Problem with your audio, from what I can understand, this is ऊंट के मुंह में जीरा budget. Now this Shehzad Poonawala, I've you know, I don't even have a question to ask. Please respond.
Navika, since you said that I was the Nawab of acronyms, I must only add very humbly that I'm also thoda bahut Nawab of facts. So let me correct what Sanjay Jha has said. Sanjay Jha said that manufacturing has gone down. Now PMI manufacturing, the Purchasers Managing Index is up
as a
at a record high.
GDP.
The PLI scheme investment has brought in about 18.7 lakh. Please, sir, I did not interrupt you, Sanjay. I think you can wait for your turn. I can wait for mine. There are so many opposition panelists. I get to respond once in 4 times. Please, sir. The PLI investment scheme has gotten about 18.7 lakh crore and 12.6 lakh jobs have been created. Then jobs in manufacturing under the UPA tenure, it was 6%. Now it is about 15%. The merchandise export growth, it was about 8 lakh crores during the 10 years of UPA. Today, the same manufacturing exports has merchandise exports has come to 15 lakh crores. There were 2 mobile phone manufacturing units. Today there are 300 units, and we are exporting billions of dollars worth mobile phone, including for Apple and for Samsung phone. In fact, you have tried to take credit for the Foxconn investment, which happened during the BJP government. Then after that, toy exports have increased by 237%. वो toys किधर बन रहा है? Defense goods have increased, the exports have increased by about 23,000 crores. वो किधर manufacture हो रहा है? Now let us see what has been given even today's budget. Semiconductor Mission 2.0, 40,000 crores has been committed. आप बता दो संजय झा जी, आपके जमाने में कितने सेमीकंडक्टर चिप की फैक्ट्री लगा दी? एक लगी थी, उसको बंद करवा दिया था आपने. Tell me the simple things you all did for manufacturing. And today when we are about 15% of the GDP of a much larger GDP, you are cribbing about it. This is the negativity that Navika ji I want to address. And also on social welfare spending, nobody has spent as much as Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spent, and that too transparently, accountably. The money goes into the account directly, so there is no khuni panja or lutera panja which is looting the money, and therefore it is welfare for the poor, manufacturing jobs being created, allowing us to become a new manufacturing destination with a diversified market across the world, and we are now heading towards that stage where we are going to dominate manufacturing.
That's a spirited defense, but of course the opposition continuing to raise the questions, but joining